let's bring in Atari from Georgia, the country, who wants to talk about abortion. Atari, hello. So you have opinions on abortion.
I want to talk about that abortion is murder. So my argument is that it has the characteristics of life, like response to environment, regulation, growth, etc. What would you say about it?
Why do you think it's murder?
Because it has characteristics of life, as I just said, like growth, ability to grow, reproduction, response to the environment, and etc.
It's not, Atari, it's not legally considered murder. So why do you think it's murder?
That's irrelevant. Legality has nothing to do with the fact of its factors.
Okay, Jimmy.
Laws can be defined.
Yeah, well.
So what would you say about the fact that it has properties of life?
So it has properties of life, and so therefore ending it is murder. So that I think the legal system that I was brought up in, and what Richard just said, where he comes from, murder or abortion is not synonymous with murder, despite having the properties of life. I think what you're trying to ascribe to it is, considering a fetus or an unborn child, no matter the state, no matter the length of the term that we're in, you're considering it all one and the same. The problem with that is we as a society, we as a world, this conversation has not yet been solved. It's still going on. We are in a kind of a milestone, I would say, in human intellect, where we are all kind of taking a look at technology and taking a look at the very nuanced circumstances that could lead to abortion of all kinds, in all stages, between all kinds of different people, and trying to figure out what's considered acceptable and what's not. Your very hard-lined approach, I think, alienates a lot of people from joining that conversation and criminalizes people who, are not really looking to do something bad. It would in the end criminalize medical professionals, criminalize people who might not be in the best position for safety wise. It could be at risk. The child could be at risk. And so these conversations have to go on, and hardlining it with the label of murder, kind of prevents us from progressing.
Do you think, Atari, that in all cases, abortion is bad? Atari, do you think that in all cases abortions are bad?
If by all cases you mean a direct termination of the pregnancy, then yes.
Okay, so and I know from previous conversations that you're a Christian. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
So why do you think that all abortions are bad when in Numbers 5:27 it's actually suggested that women should have an abortion in some circumstances?
I mean, I can answer that, but why are you switching the conversation? I wanted to talk about it biologically.
Right. Okay, so I know you don't want to talk about that, but I want to talk about that. And as it's my show, that's what we're going to be talking about, unfortunately. If you if you think that abortions are bad in all kind of situations, why is it that in the Bible it seems that abortion is actually supported in some circumstances? Do you just not agree with the Bible?
Bible does not talk about abortion in those cases, and besides, you are not supposed to interpret it. I don't know if you were a Protestant beforehand, but
okay. So, Atari, if you're not supposed to interpret it, why is it that the Bible says abortion is okay and you're against abortion in all cases?
It doesn't say it. And as we have seen with Protestants, we can't interpret the Bible because everyone will have the contradictory.
Well, you can interpret the Bible now.
We have the church.
So you can interpret the Bible when it suits you to interpret it.
We have the church established in the 5th century, and ever since then, abortion was condemned. First catechism.
So we just throw everything in the Old Testament out before the 5th century then? Do we just dismiss the entire Bible before the entire Old Testament?
Well, Old Testament also condemns Bible. I mean, abortion in the sense that it says in 4th commandment or 3rd commandment, I think.
That's absolutely wonderful, Atari, but you said that abortion was okay in all circumstances and the Bible disagrees with you. So are you now saying that we should just throw everything in the Old Testament out because it's before the 5th century?
Your interpretation of it is wrong.
But it's not wrong because the Bible specifically tells us that in some on some occasions abortion is okay. The actual thing it says is if she had made herself impure and been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her abdomen, it will swell her womb and miscarry, and she will become a curse. That is what people who are faithful to God are told to do in that circumstance. That's not my interpretation. That is what the Bible says. It specifically gives instructions for carrying out abortions.
Abortion is, so who are you to tell us otherwise? But besides,
we're people that have voices and opinions. We're allowed to challenge this ancient book, and in Richard's case, he's not even challenging it. He's citing it. He's citing it as a source of information that actually goes against what you're saying. And so for you to ask him, well, who is he to bring this up and who is he to comment on that? I mean, you should be able to explain your holy book in a way that Richard could understand if you think that his interpretation is wrong, which is, by the way, not even an interpretation. It's a word for word recital of what is in that book. So I don't want you to kind of, muddy our conversation by moving on. I think that you have reached a point where you have to justify this. Abortion is murder, in your opinion, in all cases, but God says abortion is okay. How do you rectify the differences between those two positions?
I don't know about those specific verses, but as I said, since our church teaches that abortion is wrong, then it can't be contradiction. There can be contradiction.
Well, your church teaches you that abortion is wrong, but you have the right to examine whether or not what you're being taught is actually correct. You don't have to sit back and say, well, so-and-so told me something, or this person that I trust told me something, so it has to be true. People are wrong all the time, and that's why we have to have these conversations. You are perfectly capable, and you have every right to have your own opinion after doing the work yourself and thinking for yourself, figuring out for you what is best for Otari. What does Otari believe? You don't have to just go and believe everything just by default because your leader says you have to believe it. That's not leadership, and that's not putting you in a position to come up with kind of your own thoughts. You have to be your own person.
Bible didn't come out of nowhere. It was proposed and defined by the church canonically. So how could it be?
How do we know that that's correct? Just because Your church said that abortion is wrong. How do we know that your church is correct?
When it contradicts the Bible, I might add.
True. Yeah. Otari, is it possible that some of the people who you look to as leaders could be wrong sometimes?
No.
You know, okay. Well, we're in a dilemma, my friend. We are in a dilemma because by giving somebody that kind of power, you are basically
God to protect them infallibly.
Yeah, so again, what I was saying.
Want to talk about religion. I wanted to ask about biology.
Yeah, we've kind of. I think we've done with talking, Atari. I think you really need to go away and seriously consider why your beliefs and the beliefs of those people you look up to as religious leaders directly contradict the Bible. Because it seems like the people you're looking up to are putting themselves above God, and the orthodoxy of those religious decisions are putting themselves above God, who directly instructs that a woman should go and drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering to cause her an abortion. It's in the Bible, my friend. I suggest you go away and study it. Thank you, Atari, for your call. I'm sorry that we didn't get to the subjects you wanted to talk about, but I think it's very important to kind of point out where you're probably going quite wrong in relation to the things you believe. And I think when both myself and Jimmy asked Atari questions, I think his silence spoke far more words than any of us could have spoken. That kind of moment of realization. Atari, go and read the Bible. Go and read and understand the Bible. And then, instead of calling us week after week, giving weak positions as to why you believe in God and why you think abortion is wrong, go and question the people who are making the rules in your church and contradicting your holy book, and go and question them as to why they're doing that, because I think you need a conversation with those people more than you need with us.
Well, let's go out to Pennsylvania. We've got Hannah, she, her. You have a question for us, I think, if I can actually push the button, Hannah. I promise I'm going to get you on. But you were on Talk Heathen with Richard and SR. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys are killing it today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel for hosts today, so we were the last ones on the list. But thank you. But you've got a pretty interesting question. What is that question? And we'll see if we can help out a little.
Yeah, so a little bit of background about me. I was homeschooled growing up, aka brainwashed by Answers in Genesis, and so. It's been a journey. I'm 30 years old now. And during the era of Donald Trump and COVID, I really started to question. I'm like, wait a second, are Christians the bad guys? Are we the bad guys in this scenario? What's going on? And just seeing all the inconsistencies in my faith. And so I've really been on a journey of deconstructing that and going through all the angst and stuff that entails. And then last summer, I really came to the conclusion that, it's not that Christianity is I don't think it's true. But I would still consider myself a Christian, I guess, just because I do see how it can be a pathway to love and community. And so I'm still really, really more than I've ever been involved in my local church. I'm the youth leader. And so right now our church, all churches, are in a season of Lent, which is supposed to be a time of self-reflection and thinking through what we want to give up for God and that type of thing. And so I've been thinking about do I want to give up God for Lent? Just because I'm not sure if this belief is serving me anymore.
Yeah.
But my big thing is like, if I quit my church, like, what are these teens going to do? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've been able to, I don't know, share some love and some positivity in a space where it might otherwise be, you know, kind of like, oh, purity culture, like, don't have sex before you're married. Like, this is what you have to do. You know, you have to get baptized. And like, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it kind of sounds, no worries at all, Hannah. It kind of sounds like you're saying that you recognize a lot of the harm and a lot of the problems that various believers can go down, right? Those really bad routes.
Yeah.
And you're kind of looking at it from a different perspective now and wondering if maybe there's a chance for you to kind of soften some of that harm or completely cut it out. I think that's I think that's an awesome goal. I'm hugely in support of that. I want you to know. Also, I want to say, like, I can't really give you advice because I don't exactly know the full situation. But I can tell you some of my thoughts on it, which are,
Yeah.
as someone who thinks all of these religions that I've ever come across really are, at the end of the day, just not founded in reality. There's crucial elements to each one of them that just don't work. They just aren't true. And worse than that, there are parts of it that, again, are crucial elements to these belief systems that actively cause harm every single time. And there's no question. There are some good things. There are good people, of course, right? We have to separate Christians and Christianity, Muslims and Islam. Islam is bad. Not all Muslims are, right? People can be good people and still have these beliefs. My view is we can just do better without them. We can avoid all of that harm and we can have a lot better things. So being in the place that you're at is a little tough, I think, because I'm not sure exactly what I would do. Because in one sense, I think, you're spot on, Hannah. I think, my gosh, I wish more churches were filled with staff members that had more of a thought process like you, right? There are so many wonderful believers out there who, aren't anti-LGBTQ. They're not trying to just force their religion into the laws across the world and kill people in the streets and stuff. And those people in those fights are always on my team. I am always going to stand shoulder to freaking shoulder with those people. And we can have the conversation about, did Jesus rise from the dead? We can have the conversation about, fundamental existence of absolute ultimate ground. We can do all that shit later. But the stuff that is super duper tangible, which it kind of sounds like some of the stuff that you're talking about, right? That stuff that just is constantly harmful, that purity culture garbage, teaching people that they're just inherently fundamentally broken and crap. Like, that stuff is just straight bad. And I love the idea of somebody saying, how can I present this information in a way that isn't like this, right? How can I give the good things of this religion and get rid of all that crap? I think if you go that route, and again, I can't, I definitely can't give advice because I just don't know your situation well enough, unfortunately. But I think if you go that route, you'll find yourself in a boat of, before too long, starting to say, really, everything that I want to teach in this vein is found somewhere else and found better. And that at the end of the day, even giving lip service to it sometimes just continues to perpetuate those harms that you don't want. And again, this is a really, really tough place, Hannah. I really do. I feel for you. I know what this was like. I spent years going to my church playing music. I played handbells. I played drums. I sang. Like, I did that for years in a space of really not believing. And it was hard to know what to do because, all I was really doing was just playing the drums, right, for some of the songs. But was I actually contributing to some of the harms too? I don't know. I had to wrestle with that. But let me pass it off to Richard real quick, and I'll shut up. But hopefully, some of that at least kind of helped, with the thought process, or at the very least, let you know that you're not the only person that's been in this space or in this space now, and there are a lot of really good people here in this community that please reach out and say something to, and I know they will show you some love back. So. Richard, any thoughts on this? What exactly should Hannah do here? What do you think about this, man?
I don't think anyone can decide exactly what Hannah should do other than Hannah.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of things to consider. One of which, and probably the main one actually, is what do you see your status as being in the church and within the religion? Do you see it something that you see as being there indefinitely? Are you going to be going to church continually? If so, I think that changes the kind of and again, as Asar says, I don't want to give you direct advice, but it changes the kind of answer I would give, because you do not have to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are not responsible for these young people.
Yeah.
And in a way, you trying, if you're kind of in a position where you're questioning your own faith and you're kind of giving that to these young people, you don't want to put yourself in a position where their parents are kind of getting angry with you and the church leaders are getting angry at you via the parents, putting these doubts on them. So I would say, you don't take on that responsibility if you're kind of putting yourself in a position of culpability, if you like, while doing that. Think about yourself and think about your position. And if you're looking to be in the church long term yourself anyway, and you don't see yourself going anywhere, sure, talk to these young people, because there might be a situation where they turn around and possibly ask you a question about homosexuality or about trans people, that you're in a position to, being in the position you're in, to give them really good advice on, which may not be exactly in line with the church, but may inform them being part of the church. If you're doubting and you're thinking about kind of leaving the church altogether, or leaving that specific church, then don't take on that responsibility, is what I would say, because you've got a duty of care to yourself first and foremost in any situation. And I think that's something that we should be kind of pushing out there much more, and that you've got a duty of care to yourself. And I understand that you probably feel responsible for these young people, being a youth pastor or a youth church leader, and you've probably built relationships up with these people, and they are very, very important, but you're not going to be able to do them any good if you're uncomfortable with yourself. There's a very, very good organization, I think, that you might benefit from kind of talking to, and that's recoveringfromreligion.org. I've personally got some good friends within that organization, and I know that you're kind of exactly the kind of person that they like look out to help. So if I would suggest, rather than talking to us two idiots who can't really give you any advice, give Recovering from Religion a call, and kind of they'll help you navigate this a lot better than we can. But yeah, I'd say first and foremost, for me personally, self-care is the most important, and it doesn't matter whether you currently believe or whether you currently don't believe or whether you're on the fence, but these children are not your direct responsibility. You are your responsibility. And if via looking after yourself, you can help these children, then do that. If helping these children is going to cause you difficulty, then take a step back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only advice I can really offer you.
Yeah. What do you think about all that, Hannah? Shout back to us a little bit here.
I'm going to try not to cry. That was both of you. That was so beautiful. And this is like the first time I've talked about this to anyone, because even the thought of just leaving is so scary to think about.
That's a lot.
But I think you're spot on, Richard, with like, I don't know, with self-care and stuff. Cause like, I love these kids so much. And I just see so much good in them. And I really do want to foster that. And, you know, and they have so many great questions. Like kids always have great questions. Like they're the ones who are questioning and, you know, being like, how does this work? And, you know, like, aren't all religions like good? And I'm like, yeah. But, and also like, you know, there's some truth to everything, but then there's also dangers to everything as well. And I don't know. It's just, yeah, that was beautiful. I'll definitely check out that website that you gave me for sure. And that was, I don't know, I'm blown away. I didn't expect that at all.
Well, Hannah, I'll tell you this right now. If you're not watching the stream as it is, that's okay. Go back and check it out. We've got the love rings going for you right now. And I know there's been just a whole bunch of freaking support for you in the chat and stuff. Also, you know, please reach out to these communities. Recovering from religion, like Richard talked about. Remember, we've got the Fan Run Discord and the Fan Run Facebook pages. And honestly, either way, no matter what you decide, Hannah, give us a call back and let us know, because it just sounds like a place that I think a lot of us have been, and we remember what that time feels like. Most of us, it sucked, it hurt. We felt alone. We felt like everyone was fighting us. And honestly, there's a lot of us out here that are just ready with open arms. We're just excited to have you, because you seem like a good person. Whether you ultimately end up staying in the church and believing or not, it sounds like you are just genuinely a good person, and you just want to see good things for other people. And we want that too. We want that for people. We're secular humanists, and whether you believe or not, we still want good things for you. So Hannah, give us a call back in the future and just update us and let us know, because I'm sure everybody out here would love to hear that. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Like, you have no idea how much you guys helped me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, awesome, Hannah. Well, thank you so much. Definitely. And yeah, I know that is a tough place for sure, Richard. It can be very difficult, especially kind of depending on the community around you and stuff. But yeah, I think you're right, man. We always have to be making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our mental and emotional health. You know, it can be very tough, and it does sometimes feel like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. But the good news is there are a lot of other shoulders. You know, there are a lot of other people out there that are happy to stand and help each other. So.
Dre, him from Texas, wants to talk about porn is wrong. Dre, you are live on Talk Heathen. What is your argument?
I'm doing today firstly.
Hey, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Dre.
Dre, okay. Wanted to make sure. Yeah, Dre, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to I saw the topic of discussion, and me coming from a theist perspective, I'm automatically assuming that porn is wrong. So I won't try to argue from a theistic point of view. I'll argue from a secular point of view.
Yeah, so when we say porn is wrong, like we talked to the last caller about how porn is, quote, sinful because God says it's bad, and I can't argue with that. But when you say it's wrong, what does that really mean? Does that mean that porn is harmful to people? Does that mean that porn is damaging in some way? Like, what does wrong mean in that sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely what? Elaborate for me if you would.
It's absolutely damaging to people.
Okay. How do you know?
Because just from a historical standpoint, no society has ever been able to build upon a foundation of hedonism. So the act of putting pleasure first has always destroyed societies in history, throughout all of history. So I only say this because the reason I want to tie in how porn is damaging, because porn relies on the objectification and the commodification of sexuality, when sexuality is something that's personal and it's intimate. So
let me jump in right there, because I feel like that premise alone is enough to keep us talking all day. Why is porn only, or rather sex, why is sex only supposed to be about intimacy? Where is that written? Who declared that, and whose best interest did they have in mind? Obviously, you can have sex that is commodified. Obviously, you can have sex that isn't intimate, and plenty of people do. So when you say you can't, what is it that you actually mean here?
I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying
but shouldn't
serve the greater good. It doesn't serve the greater good of humanity. That's what I'm trying to argue.
Okay, I mean, how does me going and playing golf for 8 hours, how does that further humanity in any sort of useful or meaningful way? How is me playing golf any better for society than me masturbating to pornography for 8 hours?
Because the implications of golf being perverted are low. The implications of sex being perverted are high.
I mean,
and are
we're
dangerous.
talking about a sport that has a lot of classism. We're talking about a sport that has a huge environmental impact. I mean, golf can be really, really problematic to society.
Wait. The implications of sex being perverted is, for one, and this is a huge problem that we have. We have a problem with child pornography. We have a problem with sex trafficking, and we have a problem with rape. We have sex. The perversion of sex is totally different from the perversion of something like golf.
Golf isn't a perversion of nature, if we want to, take that point. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how pornography leads to any of the social ills that you're talking about. It reminds me at the start of the call when you were talking about how a society built on hedonism is going to be destroyed. And I have to ask, like, what society on a long enough timeline hasn't been destroyed? There have been plenty of societies throughout time and history and culture that have had quote unquote hedonism, that have had beautiful gardens, that have had vineyards for growing wine and all of these kinds of things. And eventually all of those societies get destroyed. Is that because they were too hedonistic? I mean, what do these things mean?
Yes, but personally, I want to say hedonism is a part of why you get destroyed, because I think when people become too obsessed with pleasure, they put their purpose on the back end, and infrastructure starts to crumble.
Yes. So if we all spent like 40 hours a week playing golf and none of us participated in life, or were raising our children or educating ourselves or performing labor, then our society would crumble. Similarly, if we all decided to spend 40 hours a week watching pornography, our society would kind of crumble. But I'm struggling to figure out any differences here between pornography and golf.
If you want to be totally honest with yourself, golf is not nearly as fun as sex. It's not nearly as pleasurable. So that is the equivalency that you're trying to make. It doesn't.
We should only do boring stuff.
That sounds like a personal
God hates
opinion.
happiness.
But like, let's take any hobby, and like going along the lines that Christy was saying, like, so I'm a doctor, right? So I do a lot of very important work for society throughout the week, and it gets very excessive sometimes. Like, there's a role in everybody's life for pleasure and for a little bit of hedonism, and we're not saying that. I don't think any of us here is going to say that your entire life should be based on just doing what's fun and abandoning what needs to be done to further humanity. None of us are making that assertion, but we're saying that sometimes it's a good idea for people to have outlets for social functions, outlets for sports, outlets for sexual pleasure. These are all necessary things for humanity. And I think Christy especially would advocate that, like, having your sexual needs met leads to humans in general being more productive in their society. So I don't think that, like, if we want to talk about like humans and their value to their society, I mean, that's a certain discussion, but that has nothing to do with whether or not the act of watching porn itself is problematic. Because what if somebody watches maybe for an hour a day and then is very productive in their life? Like, you can't have people only doing their job or people burn out, right?
But see, this is the so the barriers that comes from not being, for porn won't be obsessed. It kind of stems from its prohibition. So so from a theistic point of view, sin is something that you shouldn't do, right? But it's something that people do anyways. And it's something that people should feel bad for, because if they don't feel bad for it, they will do it without consequence. I know it's going to happen regardless. So people are desiring to have their sexual needs met is something that's going to happen regardless. But we have the societal barriers. For instance, we got societal barriers because, okay, just for instance, if we did not have societal, I'm sorry, that was
let me jump in a little bit, Dre, because I feel like you might be struggling here. It really sounds like you had that experience that we all have at some point, where instead of our mom or dad telling us like, okay, you can have a cookie, but only one, we all had an experience at a certain age where mom wasn't looking, and we ate as many cookies as we possibly can, and then got sick from it and started to realize, oh, there was a good reason why mom said that there was a restriction on the number of cookies. What I'm hearing from you, Dre, what everything I have heard from you over the course of the last 10 minutes feels like it can be boiled down to, I'm worried that this cookie tastes so good that I can't trust myself and I shouldn't like it. And there's all of these ideas of what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing and what I'm going to do anyway, even though I shouldn't do it. And it all is just sort of this notion of being somehow unable to control yourself around the things that you enjoy. And because you don't think that golf is that particularly fun, you're not really worried about it. You don't really see golf as sinful. But porn, whoo mama, is that something that's a lot of fun, and therefore we have to be extra careful about it. And then we bring in all of this like moralizing from God and everything else. Is there anything that I've said just now that you disagree with, or that doesn't actually encapsulate your argument up to this point?
No, it doesn't. I just want to say like one more thing, and I got to go back to work. But what I want to say is that if you look up actual statistics, you will know that a lot of sexual predators and people that have been guilty of sexual crimes, they follow it's a certain pipeline.
There's something
lots
else.
of people committing lots of crimes. The biggest crimes in our country are
hold on, Dre,
golf.
because a lot of people that are committing a lot of these crimes are in religious institutions, and especially in positions of power in religious institutions. Just something thrown out there.
Yeah, if we're trying to profile people based on their hobbies, I am much more interested in the criminality of the top 1% of golfers in this country than the criminality of the top 1% of porn consumption in this country. Absolutely take that to the bank. I appreciate what you're saying, Dre, but when you say statistics, you are so far off course. You have no citation on that. And while I don't want to be pedantic or pick at any specific little thing, I have to just flat out reject this whole porn to predator pipeline philosophy that you're promoting here.
Shout
out to our sound team for those plosives. Sorry. Real statistics. Call us back when you have real statistics. Email us. I would love to see a number. TV@atheist-community.org. I will be sitting here with bated breath, desperate to see that research study, because I have spent so much of my career trying to find those numbers that everybody says are out there that I swear to you do not exist. I will read them on air. You have my word right now, Dre. If you email anything even remotely resembling the statistics that you claim you have, I will read them on air. You have my word. Other than that, thank you for calling. Please keep thinking on it.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. We love to hear back from you, and I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday.
Whew, Ben, I didn't mean to get too turned up towards the end of it, but it started to resemble sort of the worst of the backwater 4chan-y, I guess, Twitter X now conversation that our culture seems to be having, that you and I were even touching on before the show, about how there's this idea that anybody whose sex life doesn't look like, you know, the Cleavers is somehow grooming children, is somehow going to be like violent or predatory towards kids or towards other marginalized people. And I just get so angry at this notion that something that our society is uncomfortable with is inherently evil and the source of every bad thing that's ever happened.
And it just makes me laugh too every time we get a caller that wants to try to explain to us the statistics about something like this, and they have no idea that they're talking to an expert in the field that has been studying sex and how humans like respond to sexual stimuli and all that. Like, it's hilarious that they want to present that and not give any statistics. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, no, I love, I mean, it's so nice when you have it in such a tight bow, because that conversation is reflective of almost every conversation I have about pornography in my work as a therapist, because so often people will come in and they'll say, well, I really want to argue this from a secular standpoint. I'm not being roped in by my old religious beliefs. But then when you start to scratch the surface or push back on any of this quote unquote accepted knowledge, you realize that no, it just devolves into religious moralizing again.
Let's move on to our next caller, who is Malachi in Arkansas. Sorry if I said your name wrong. You think that the atheist community is religious in its own way. What's your reasoning for that?
Yes. I used to listen to Talk Heathen and, well, mainly Matt Dillahunty, but I'm agnostic. I'm not really theist, but I don't really watch it anymore just because of that reason of, well, A, I just kind of got bored with the content, and B, it just kind of seemed to me that just the way that everybody like carried themselves, that it just kind of seemed like religious in its own way, like religious in the way that it's anti-religious. Like I don't really care either way. I'm kind of a fence sitter, but you know, and I heard an earlier bit on the stream, and I heard that one of y'all is getting your doctorate. I don't know which one, for trans something.
Oh, it says God King now. It said doctor.
Yeah, I just wanted to put my stance on that I think that involving children in that is totally immoral and wrong, but if it's an adult...
Oh, okay, hang on a sec. I'm happy to do either of these topics, but let's do one and the other, because otherwise we'll spiral off into something. Let's do your first discussion, and then we can, because I feel like
next time we can talk about trans kids.
Or maybe even this time, because I feel like I might be. I was just prepared to reach out to you on this first one, and I'm less incentivized now. But I think, and I don't want to straw man your position here. I don't feel like you're calling in to make a strong argument straight up, you know, to be confrontational. On that part, perhaps on the second part you are, but I think sometimes, and you know, tell me if I'm wrong on this. But sometimes when people say, "Oh, I think the atheist community is religious," they don't mean this as in some kind of definition of religion where there's a worship and, you know, there are ceremonies and we go to the Google definition of what a religion is and argue about whether it specifically fits. What they really mean is there's this kind of almost like zealousness, or people have very strong opinions and they argue it very much, and it's their entire worldview and they want to push it onto other people. And it matters a lot to them. Is that the kind of thing you mean when you say it's a religion? Or are you making the claim that we have some supernatural beliefs or some ceremonies that we take part in?
No, the latter. But
Yeah.
also in the way of the the politics of it, where yes, I agree that that Christianity does have its say in politics. So I don't know why abortion is like Christian majority. You know, they say no, or because the Bible, you know, doesn't really say anything about that really. But
so on
the atheist
on
community. No, well, I was going to get to my point real quick is that the atheist community leans left just like the Christian community leans typically towards the right. And I kind of see the similarities in that too, and that kind of makes me back off as well.
So there, I mean, I agree that you know, religion and atheism can often have political leanings. I guess on the religion part, so I guess I can empathize with this kind of, oh, I don't see why people have like super strong reviews on religion. So I grew up in the UK, I live in the UK, and here religion isn't a major force. It's not something people talk about. It's not really something that religious people even talk about, you know, in public. It's not in our politics. It's not like a big argument point in the way that it is in the USA. And I grew up believing in a God, and then I got to being a teenager, and then I stopped believing in a God, and it wasn't really a big deal. Like I had a little internal struggle about it, but it's not like I had to come out to my family as an atheist. It's not like it affected my employment potential, or, you know, I didn't get bullied about it at school. It was just a thing I did and then moved on. And then I didn't really think about it. And then when I encountered, like, you know, I started off watching Atheist Experience as well and Talk Heathen. And I was like, you know, why are these people so passionate about it? And I actually heard one atheist person say, when I came out as an atheist, and it was really difficult to me. And as an LGBT person, my reaction was like, oh, why are you saying coming out like that? That's kind of bullshit, because like coming out as LGBT is like the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's horrible. And it's like, you know, people die over this. And coming out as an atheist is nothing. Like what you want about. But then I listened to his story, and actually it was just as difficult for him to come out as an atheist, because his entire community, his family, you know, and his children were caught up in it, and it tore his life apart. He had to move to a different state. Like, you know, it's a huge deal. It's a like a dark secret that some people have in a similar kind of way, sometimes to being LGBT. So the reason I think some people are kind of like religious about this is because they see, you know, they've lived through the situation where them coming out as an atheist has turned their whole life upside down, or in some cases even ruined their life if it's torn their family away, or, you know, people lose their lives over coming out as atheist in some countries. And when that happens, you see that, and you want to not only defend your community, but fight for people. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. They want to hang on a second.
Malachi.
Let me just finish the sentence, because I'm near the end. When they do, you know, deal with all this, they're like, this was so hard for me. I don't want it to be hard for anyone else. Like, I believe in freedom of religion, and that anyone should be able to believe anything. You know, religious beliefs wise, like there shouldn't be a law against it. But I also think that people shouldn't be like harshly policed by society for being an atheist. I think that's garbage, and that's one of the reasons that I do this. And when I realized that it was such a big deal in so much of the world, I was like, well, I want to, you know, as an atheist who's very secure and confident, me doing this show doesn't risk anything. It doesn't, you know, I'm not going to lose my job over doing some kind of public activism that maybe some other people might. So I'm in this privileged position to do that, and maybe I can make it easier for future generations of atheists.
Malachi, can I jump in here? So I had a bad experience having.
I haven't made a counter really to what has been said, but what I would have to say is that these people that quote unquote come out as atheists, they kind of put atheism on a pedestal, like.
Okay, Malachi, listen. I'm gonna jump in here because this is my story. This is Malachi. Malachi, listen to me. Listen to me, Malachi. Listen to me. Yeah, no, I'm in an angry mood today because these are people coming in and saying that my experience is invalid. And let me say, I am trans, I am bisexual, and I'm an atheist. I have multiple categories of my life where I had to come out to my family who work in religion. So my family is so deep into fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. And it came down to, like, the reason why I had to come out as an atheist, I was essentially forced into saying anything. I went a while not saying anything to my family because I knew it was going to be a big deal. And basically what happened, this was before med school. So before I had moved out of my family's house because living is expensive. And they essentially staged an intervention with me to say, you're going to go to church or else. And that was the conversation that was had. And so I had to say, I don't believe this. Like, this is why I'm not going to church. This is a boundary I need to set up. I can't let you manipulate me like this and make this be the reason I stay in this family. So it seems like you're putting atheism on a pedestal by coming out, but that's not the case. Some people have to set up these boundaries with their family because it is absolutely emotionally and psychologically abusive sometimes. Does that make sense to you? Like, this is a big deal for a lot of people, and everybody's experience is different, but some people have to go through this.
No, it doesn't make sense how you're comparing, like, coming out as being atheist to coming out as being gay, because atheism is not really something you have to come out as. And really,
Malachi, I just told you.
If you don't
hold
believe,
on.
I didn't believe in.
Hold on, I'm muting you.
Hang on.
Okay. So I just told you why I had to come out, and now you're coming and saying, but I don't see why you need to come out. You should. It's not the same as coming out as gay. It's not the same. But listen, for me, coming out as atheist was worse for my family than coming out as trans. My family was more willing to keep me around being trans than being an atheist, which isn't that way for everybody, but it was for me.
I think the reason why people think these two things aren't the same is because they think, being gay is a sexuality, or being trans is like gender identity stuff. And you're telling someone about an inner part of you, something that you were born or something that developed in early life. And when you're an atheist, you're saying, this is my belief. And obviously, beliefs are different to a physical part of, who you are and how your brain works. But the reason that LGBT people come out isn't because there's an innate property of sexuality that causes you to need to come out. It's because society assumes everyone is straight and assumes everyone is cis. And when you aren't, that is news. That's like an important thing to society for some reason that you then need to tell them. And in accepting places, when you come out, you might not even come out. Some people don't need to come out. They just, bring home a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, and then people make assumptions, whatever. But in a lot of places, they have to come out because if they were to just turn up with a same-sex partner, or they were to just start medically transitioning, it could be dangerous for them. There'll be loads of people who want to know, and it could cause a whole scene. And delivering that information on your own terms can make it safer, and it can make people more likely to understand it, and more likely to engage with you and ask questions. And it's the same for atheism. The reason why people need to come out as atheists is not because of some innate property or whatever. It's because in some cultures, people assume that you're religious, and you telling them otherwise is that's a piece of news to them. And whether sometimes that's good news or sometimes it's bad news. So I think coming out is the right expression, because if we lived in a world where no one assumed your sexuality, no one assumed whether you were trans or cis, no one assumed your religion or whatever, then people wouldn't care. It wouldn't be news. Everyone would be like, hey, what are you? What are you? Whatever. I don't actually need to know. I don't care. Whatever. And that's why, that's would be a better world than the world we live in. But that's why I think it's a good comparison. I'm just going to unmute you. It's just not letting me click it. Unmuted.
I don't know. To me, it seems like it's just more putting it on a pedestal, and for you to just all you would have to do is just, you're trans, okay, cool. You're gay, okay, cool. But you don't have to get a megaphone and announce it to
But lots of people
everybody in your
don't
whole
think it's cool,
family.
mate.
Rub
We
it in
No,
their
I
Malachi,
faces, they
nobody
say.
wants to. We don't
Yeah, I
want
don't
to.
want
I would
to.
love to. I would love to just exist as a trans person and have nobody make
Never
a big
talk
deal
about it
out of
again.
it.
Yeah.
We don't want to
I'm
do
sure
this.
there's some gay people out there who it would offend for you to compare coming out as atheist to coming out as gay or what. Like
They can
I'm
call
sure
in.
there's a lot of gay people that be offended.
Malachi, are you
For
in
real,
are
for
you
real.
in the
Are you
LGBTQ
gay?
community? Are you part of this community?
You don't have to come out to us on air.
No,
I
You don't have
understand.
to. But my point is, like, you're speaking on behalf of a community that you're not part of, and that's
Yeah,
kind
I
of straw manning somebody
No,
else's
no.
position.
Also, it's not. It doesn't really matter. It's not really relevant.
The
It
idea
doesn't
that
matter
there's
whether
a
gay people are offended by it or
community
not.
is preposterous. The idea that there's a gay community is preposterous. Just like the idea that there's a black community is preposterous. There's gay
What?
people.
Hey, okay, hang on a second. I will explain for the callers at home, because I don't think you'll probably listen to this explanation. But the reason why there is an LGBT community and the reason why we have to have a megaphone and talk about it. Like, I don't talk about being trans in my personal life. When I'm meeting my friends, it's not like I'm like, hey guys, remember I'm trans? Let's talk about that. I just have a normal life like you do, like everyone else does. But in my country and in a lot of countries in the world, including also Ben's country and your country, there are people who are trying to take away our rights for being trans people, trying to take away our freedoms, stopping us from living the same life that you do. That is just a thing. When you were just describing, you're like, oh, someone comes out as trans, okay, cool. That's great. When people are like, okay, cool, that's a fine reaction. But lots of people, like fucking loads of people, do not have that reaction, and they have a real issue with it, and they want to ruin my life over it. So I have to stand up and say, not only do I have to say, person who is trying to ruin my life, you are wrong, fuck off. This is immoral, it's illogical, you don't have any evidence. I have to do that. But also, there's not many trans people, and there's even fewer trans people who are willing to fight for their rights, because it is very difficult and lots of people have a lot of things going on in their life. I then have to talk to cis people and say, hey guys, just so you know, I know we live a normal life and we're just friends and whatever but there is someone who's trying to ruin my life, and I need you to write to your politician over this, because if you don't, then maybe I won't have healthcare and I'll be totally fucked. So that's why I need to talk about these things. And then that is why we end up with a community. I'm not saying that, like, I am instantly friends with every trans person, or I have loads in common with every single trans. But there are people who are trans who that is the only thing we have in common. Like, I fucking hate Ben, but because we're both atheists and we're both trans, we run in the same circles. I have to smile at him sometimes. And that is what the community is. It's not me being friends. It's not anything other than the fact that if they take away my rights, they're going to take away rights from every trans people in this country, potentially. And so we all end up teaming up together, because that's what we have to do. And that's what we mean by the LGBT community. We're saying that the same people who want to ruin gay people's lives are the same people who want to ruin bisexual people's lives, same people who want to ruin trans people's lives, for the same overarching ideology, which is this belief that everyone has to fit into a box and follow the rules. And it is often linked to religion, not always. And this is why you have like an atheist community is, you might be the only atheist in your town. You might have never met an atheist before other than yourself. And you could feel really alone and like, what the fuck, how do I deal with this? Well, how do I tell my family? And they're like, oh, there's a really great atheist community on the internet at tiny.cc/FBTHD, where I can go and talk to other atheists, understand the issues, understand how to make arguments, understand how to fight for my rights if the government tries to come and, force, something upon my children or whatever for being not religious or something. And that's why we have a community. This isn't the claim. Like, there are some atheists who probably hate the atheist community. There are trans people who hate me. That's fine. There are some trans people who campaign against my rights, even though it affects them too, because they are stupid as shit. But you know, maybe they don't consider themselves to be part of the community, but the community, like in quotes, is the group of people who lump together because they have a similar shared concern, who generally fight for the same things when they're not fighting each other. That's what it means.
Right. I kind of wonder if Malachi would say that like a workers' union is religious or like not a valid community.
Let's
It's
find
like the same.
out.
It's the same kind of thing.
You're back, mate.
All right.
You still there?
The same. Yes, it's insane how we got from atheism to literally identity politics, which this is my point. If you let me finish, this is my point of how identity politics is connected itself with this atheism community, just like you accuse the right of being entangled with Christianity. It's the same thing. In identity politics, the same thing that you're preaching has led to the deaths of millions of people.
So,
citation needed, please.
Let me just justify why this ends up. And I'm not saying it's right or left, because there are people on the right and the left who support LGBT rights and who are atheists. It's that's not what we're talking about. But what I'm saying is, the reason why we end up at something like what you're calling identity politics, I'm not saying, oh, my identity, therefore whatever. What I'm saying is, I think everyone on Earth should be free of oppression. That's not like it is a feminist position, but it's not just specifically a feminist position. Like, it's a libertarian position. Like, it's the opposite of authoritarianism. I think other things. I think no one should be tortured. I think no one should be tortured. I think everyone should have access to healthcare. I believe in critical thinking. I think that, using science is the best way to make a worldview, make a model of the world to understand the world and make predictions and do engineering. Like, these are just basic premises. And if you rationally follow them through and, go through with those conclusions and come to conclusions, you end up at atheism. You end up at trans rights. You end up at feminism. That this isn't some identity thing. This isn't like, oh, well, I think that the more, identity issues you have, the better person you are. Oh, like, oh, you're disabled and you're black and you're left-handed and you're, a woman. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is everyone should have healthcare. And, oh, look, trans people don't have the same healthcare access to everyone else do. Like, there's loads of these issues. It's not just like, you feel like you're just trying to cast it away by just saying, oh, identity politics. Oh, identity politics killed millions of people. Like, what is that? That's a completely nonsense claim. When I say, hey, I think I should be able to work a job without being assaulted, that's not identity politics, basically Stalinism. That's, I should have the same rights as you. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know. I don't know where your conclusion has come from there.
Everything that you're saying is, whether you realize it or not, is just the same thing that's already been done, but just repackaged and reshipped as a new product. It's the same thing that's already been done in history.
What does that mean? Oh, but we had civil rights.
If you look at,
like, women got the vote, that was the first one.
Can I go back in history for you?
Yeah.
Okay. In the USSR,
I thought you might go there.
Under Stalin. All right. Am I going to be allowed to continue? In the USSR under Stalin. All right, I'm going to continue. Under his regime, he did the exact same thing, like I said, is just a different product. He accused the lower class farmers of being a part of this, like, these descendants of these people and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, the townspeople, like, raped and killed farmers, and which basically led to the starvation of millions of people. We can also go back to China. Again, same product.
Yeah, okay, Malachi, but what you're doing here is you're comparing. Hang on, mate.
So there are no conservative gay people.
There are conservative gay people. So what you're doing here is you're saying, here is something that had a similar appearance, therefore they must be the same. But what I'm saying is, let's just look at a position in isolation. Like, here's a really easy one. should gay people be allowed to get married? Obviously, yes. There's absolutely no argument why they shouldn't. Any two consenting adults, or maybe more, should be allowed to get married. There's absolutely no reason why we should ban just specifically gay people from doing that. That is just a position on its own, stands in isolation. It doesn't need anything else. All we're saying is, let's look at the concept of marriage. Well, should two men be able to do it? Yes. That doesn't, just because maybe Stalin agreed with me, that doesn't mean that the claim that gay people should have the same marriage rights as straight people is suddenly, genocidal authoritarianism that's going to end up in starvation of millions. Like, that's a completely nonsense claim. All of these positions are just individual positions, which are very basic and stand on their own. Like something like, should I be allowed to have healthcare that keeps me alive and makes my life better? Yes. We don't need Stalin for that. Like, it's completely unrelated.
You're also comparing a person that took rights away from people with people that are advocating to give rights to people. So when we're saying that I advocate for gay rights and trans rights and women's rights and everybody's rights, we're not taking away anything from anybody else. We're just adding rights that other people already had. So it's not, I mean, it's maybe taking away the social acceptance of people being assholes to each other. It's making people say, hey, maybe we shouldn't oppress people like we were doing. That's all it's doing. Like taking away your right to control other people is not a, like, that's not a right we need to uphold, and never really was a right.
And I guess the point that I would leave, I think maybe we'll wrap this call up on, is if someone was coming to, if you just pick a random thing that you do every day, if some piece of shit just came along and said, I'm going to stop you from doing that using the full force of the government, you would be loud about it. You would make it your identity. You would find other people that are trying to do that too, and you would shout all the time with a megaphone or whatever, and you would want to tell everyone about it. And that wouldn't make you an identity politics person. That wouldn't make you Stalin. What that would mean is if someone was like, hey, everyone called Malachi on Earth is going to be banned from the toilet starting tomorrow, or you'll get arrested and put in prison. You'll find all the other Malachis and you'll shout about this. And I'll come and defend you because I think that's fucking bullshit, regardless of whether Stalin caused a famine or not. Anyway, thanks a lot for calling in. So I do quite enjoy those calls, to be honest.
This is Z calling in from Texas. Z, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hey, what's up from Houston, bro? What's up?
Houston, Texas.
Can you hear me?
How's it going? Yeah, we can hear you. How's it going, Z?
Good. How are you doing?
We're doing great.
I'm Brandon.
Welcome to Talk Heathen. What do you want to talk to us about today?
Well, I was a guy who was like, you ever seen a fish turn into a monkey on the live chat?
Okay.
I just want to kind of substantiate that I'm not really a theist. I'm not really like a Christian or whatever, but I just wanted to let people know that this evolution theory is in itself a dogma as well. It's the same thing.
So when you say I've never seen a fish turn into a monkey, I mean, like, I've never literally seen a fish turn into a monkey. But before we even go there, in your own words, what do you think evolution is?
They say we came from a single cell, bro. They say all of it came from a single cell organism underneath. It doesn't really make sense.
Okay.
But
so all life on Earth
goes into it.
Comes from, like, all multicellular life on Earth eventually came from, like, far enough down the line from single-celled organisms, right?
As far as we know, yeah.
I think that's one way to put it, right? Yeah.
Definitive proof of that at all?
Well, what would constitute for you as proof? If that idea could be true, what would you expect to see?
Even moving, it doesn't have to be the single cell to the multi-cell.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I learned evolution in school too. They think some sort of fish, some sort of water life form, grew legs and walked on Earth. right?
Yeah,
but it's a bit more complicated than that.
There's no proof of that. There's no proof of that at all. That's
I'm just
kind of ridiculous.
Z, just a second. First of all, you might want to call in on a day where our good friend Forrest Valkai is hosting, because he does this for a living, and I can paraphrase some of the things he says. There's plenty of proof that evolution is a ongoing active process. Fossil records, the genetics, and all kinds of very technical stuff that's above my head, because I haven't studied it particularly deeply, though I do trust those that have. And the thing is that it's the best model we've got right now that fits the best with the evidence that we have right now. So do you have a better model?
I have a better model, but I'm saying this model, you have to believe things in order for this model to work for you. The dogma, that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's not dogmatic. They have changed it several times in light of new evidence.
It's true. It's true. Our tree of phylogeny.
When it first came out, they used it to try to substantiate white people were more evolved than black people. That was in Darwin. And do you know Darwin's cousin?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anthropology in the early history of its science was incredibly racist. In fact, anthropology was basically almost, I would say, hot take, invented to like justify racism. It's really bad if you look at it, and there's no defending the early opinions of anthropologists. But if you look at what anthropology has done today, one, the frank disavowalment of what early anthropologists have had to say, but if you also look at what the evidence they had to use to justify racial superiority, it doesn't hold up, right? We're talking about things like phrenology, right? The study of one's head sizes and head shapes to determine things like personality and things like that. Other kinds of metrics that were used that are no longer used in modern day science because they don't justify the conclusions that they allegedly are purported to, support, right? So, like, yes, anthropology has a wicked history, but that doesn't mean what we talk about today in anthropology reflects those views that existed over 100 years ago, right?
And I would like to push back on one small point. You say that we have to have belief in things to go along with evolution, and I think you're trying to construe as in the trust in the evidence. I believe the evidence is true because I trust it, with belief as in faith, which is belief without evidence.
Of something between a fish and a monkey or a land creature. There's no... These things... First, you have to prove that an animal, a bird, can turn into a wolf, or one type of animal just turn to any type of animal for any reason.
No, you don't.
What if I told you that your DNA is more in common with a chimpanzee in some circumstances than other human beings on Earth? Would you believe me if I told you that?
Our DNA is like closest out of pigs too.
Yes, that's true.
And we all happen to be
and yet, despite our DNA being so similar to other, particularly mammals on Earth, right? Hope you're listening here. If despite us being so similar in DNA structure, on the outside, right, like we do look completely different. And I think that's where that kind of confusion draws in. But it turns out, these differences in the combinations of nucleic acids can make a huge difference in our phenotypes, right? Our outside figures, more so than what it maybe reflects on the inside. I mean, like that in itself, the fact that most like multicellular organisms on Earth do have these same combinations, that in itself is evidence of evolution. I wouldn't expect that if we were all created separately. I wouldn't see a reason for us to have these kinds of similarities.
And there's plenty of evidences that even a layperson like myself can understand. Like, I have a vestigial tail for no reason other than that my ancestors had one.
Yeah. And I had my appendix removed when I was 12 because it was going to rupture. And an appendix doesn't really, as far as most modern science has been able to determine, doesn't really do much for most humans. Pretty much kills people more than it really helps people, right? I mean, that's an example of a vestigial organ.
Came from evolution too.
Sorry?
These are the mysteries science has to figure out. We can't just...
They have.
Conscious came from evolution. Zero proof of that at all, and just take that as an answer.
We've laid out that there is plenty of proof. We're not evolutionary scientists. And if I actually got the proof out in the form that it's presented, it would be very complicated.
There's no definitive proof of these things. Evidence is evidence. You can use the same evidence to paint a whole different theory. Evidence and proof aren't the same thing.
Okay, what do you believe to be the difference between evidence and proof?
If someone was murdered at a bar and you were at the bar, I could say that's empirical evidence. I could use that to say you murdered them. I can say you didn't like them. That could be true. Mm-hmm. It's more empirical evidence. But if a picture of me came out doing the deed, that's proof. You
okay. I could see that distinction. I would say in a legal setting, they both count as evidence, right? Like they would both be submitted.
So the reason they use evidence and proof in legal and science because they're trying to get to something definitive in both.
Okay, I work in a field called e-discovery. I don't really talk about my real job outside of here, but like I work in legal cases. They use the word evidence. They don't use the word proof. That's not a thing, at least in American court of law, right? You used evidence in discovery. So just want to point that out right there, right? Evidence is the term that we use because evidence is exactly that, evidence. Proof, you know, in some fields that's applicable, like mathematics, for example, they use proofs, but evidence means a very particular thing. And it's important that we define these terms, right? When we talk about the evidence that leads us to the conclusion that evolution is the best theory that explains what we observe, we have exactly that. It's just signs that indicate. It may not be deductive inferences, although sometimes they are. A lot of times they are inductive. Let me finish, please. But we can still make very coherent and very cogent arguments about what we know about our observations of the world and how they reflect our better understanding of our history through evolution than we can with literally any other explanation that has ever tried to describe multicellular or even unicellular life's origins, right? Like there's been no other explanation that has had the best explanatory power that evolution has, period.
That doesn't mean it's true.
It may not mean it's true, but why should I believe anything else?
Well, you just said you really believe it. That's what I'm saying. You have to believe it.
Because the preponderance of evidence leads to these conclusions. It's the best model that fits with what we observe.
I think too. Let's clarify here because you're making a distinction. You're saying I believe something, and you're saying you know something as a fact. So I think
yes, I know for a fact birds have hollow bones. That's a fact, right?
Sure. I mean, but when I say believe,
that's because
I may also
single cell organism. That's something else completely.
Well, I need to be clear because when we're saying know and believe, we might be saying the same thing here, right? Like, I don't want to get caught in a semantic argument here. When we say believe, I mean the preponderance, like as Jamie was saying, the preponderance of evidence best suits this conclusion. So I believe, therefore, this conclusion. That's what I mean when I say that. And that can also, in some circumstances, count as knowledge as well. But again, like I want to be very specific when I use my words. So I don't think there's like quite the difference that you're saying here. I also believe that birds have hollow bones. And I guess you could say I know for a fact, but I do believe it. I've never seen a bird's hollow bones, to be fair, like myself. I have to trust that that's like a thing. So, you know, there it is.
I mean, yeah, like talking about semantics, you know, that's why I kind of wanted to, that's why I even said anything about evidence and proof. These things aren't the same word. In English, they're not the same words in science. And people do this a lot, even for theories. People like to say theories are facts when they think scientists use these words.
In science, a theory is the highest. Let me say this: in science, a theory is the highest level to which a model can reach.
I heard it before. I know that, bro.
So why don't you accept that?
Highest level is knowing. You can't believe something that's like.
You can never truly know anything.
Information you can receive.
You never truly, absolutely know anything.
You know, birds have hollow bones. Something we just discovered. You know,
are you even listening to me?
Look again. This is a semantics. This is a semantics argument here, right? You're saying you know things for some reason, and I don't know how you're qualifying your knowing things as different from my believing things. Mm-hmm. Like, how is that different? You say, let me put it this way. You say you know birds' bones are hollow. I say I believe birds' bones are hollows. What's the difference?
I feel like the difference. You know too. I don't know why you're saying you believe.
Because I do believe it. I can know something. I can know something and also believe something, right? Like that doesn't have to be different, right?
What are you saying?
Say again.
What are you saying exactly?
I'm asking you. You're saying there's such a big difference because you know that birds' bones are hollow, and I say I believe that birds' bones are hollow, and you're saying, oh well, I know it. Like, what's the difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying?
I could show you, and then you can know it too.
Oh, I can show you that birds' bones are hollow too. But I still believe that.
Can really prove that in any way possible.
But I can show you that birds' bones are hollow, and I can still say I believe birds' bones are hollow, right? So, like, why are you making this big deal that you say you know things and I say I believe things, and that's somehow, like, epistemically different? Like, I don't understand.
Because I just said, the first thing I said was this is a dogma. It requires belief. That's the first thing I said when I got on
Listen, all knowledge claims require belief, right? Can you tell me something you know that you don't believe?
The sky is blue. I don't need to believe. I know for a fact. I know that every day.
Do you believe that the sky is blue? If I asked you, do you believe the sky is blue, what would you say?
I know the sky is blue.
Okay, but if I asked you, do you believe that the sky is blue, would you say yes?
I would say I know.
Okay, so wait. Are you saying you don't believe that the sky is blue?
I know it's blue.
But do you believe that the sky is blue? Do you see my point here? All knowledge claims require belief. That's why this distinction you're making is nothing. There is nothing to this. You're just saying all we believe is dogma, and we have to require some sort of magic belief, and that's what evolution is. No, it's not.
And the irony,
this is a straw man argument, right? We believe things because we have a preponderance of evidence, right? As Jamie has said, we can call it knowledge. You can call it whatever you like. We're still looking at the evidence here. That's what draws our conclusions.
And the irony is that I stick to the word belief in something because I don't want to be dogmatic. I want to be able to be open to change.
Right.
If new evidence comes up, better evidence, I don't want to go, nope, that's not what I know, so I'm going to reject it. So no, that's why I stick to belief and only say I know things very rarely.
Yeah.
That's just how I am.
Okay.
I'm not going to just believe something because 97% of scientists do.
Okay.
You know what ethos persuasion is? Are you familiar with that term?
I'm very familiar with persuasion, yes.
I mean, logos persuasion. That's more
logos persuasion, yes. The use of logical rhetoric, yes.
And if you can't produce even a fossil of the in-between of a fish and a monkey,
we can't
like that, then
we can and we do,
and that's something that can happen.
They are, first of all, logos, ethos, pathos, right? Using logical arguments versus ethics arguments versus emotional arguments, right? Very familiar with rhetoric, okay? You don't have to teach me anything on that front. Other point, yes, there's tons of transitional fossils. In fact, literally every fossil that exists ever is a transitional fossil because of how evolution works, right? You're different from the way your parents look, and you're not an exact copy. You do that because there's an exchange of information when you're produced as an offspring, and that's just how evolution happens.
Or primates. You know what I'm trying to say? Let's not get into the semantics, right?
What's the semantic distinction there?
That's what you said.
I don't know what.
Oh, there's a distinction now.
With what?
With apes and monkeys and primates. They came from primates. That's the scientific term, right?
Well, we are primates. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I'm saying.
What are you saying? I don't know what you're saying.
Humans are in a transitional stage, so
yes.
Every human fossil we find is transitional.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every fossil we find is transitional. By definition, it's transitional because all life is transitional. There's the only static copies we see in nature.
Only animals in transition.
If you're looking for a half fish, half monkey hybrid fossil, then I suggest you take a biology course.
You said they exist. It's not.
No. Listen. Again, when I said earlier, right? If you look at broadly speaking on Earth, especially between mammals, but also even between other animals you wouldn't expect, like with reptiles and birds, right? Like we do share most of our DNA. Like most of our DNA is the same. That's what we would expect to see under evolution, right? But phenotypically, even though Jamie and I share like literally 99% of our DNA, you notice we look very different, right? So very small differences in DNA can make very big differences in the way people look. So like that's why
you're the same species, you're the same race, you're the same animal.
Right. So
when you say DNA and all DNA is similar, there's more evidence because we share a lot of DNA with bananas too. We share like what? Like 90% with bananas, like 90% with banana.
Yes.
So this
because
plane does it really make?
Yeah, because they're multicellular life.
Getting that there, you know.
I'm sensing you've got a lot of incredulity as to the current model of evolution, and it just seems a little contrarian to me. I would suggest if you really want to find out about it, go and learn about it.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to trust, then go learn.
Yeah.
However, I would like to ask one slightly tangential question. Okay, let's say evolution is not real. You've proven it wrong.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Nature. That's all I'm really trying to get across.
So you don't have anything to replace it, or any idea of what we should do instead, or any methodology that we could follow to better explain this world that we see around us? Then it's not a particularly useful position to keep.
That doesn't really explain, you know, but like you can believe it. That's what I'm saying. Like you can believe it if you want. Same way you can believe God just pulled everything out of nowhere. It's the same thing.
It is not the same thing because there's no evidence that God created the world as far as I can see.
Okay, so that's back to the same thing. Why are we the only transitional species that we find fossils for?
It sounds like you've learned this word, transitional species, and you're just parroting it at us. And it's
and
not
also
very constructive.
I really don't feel like you're listening to what we're saying at all, because we've said several times every fossil is a transitional fossil, right? Because we're constantly in transition. When sexual reproduction happens, like you're going to get new combinations of genes. That's how evolution works.
I get that. But there's still such a thing as a bird. Like, that's a type of animal, right? Like, a bird is a type of animal, same way a human is a type of animal.
That's correct. What about Neanderthals? What about, you know, any other, you know, like Homo erectus, right? These are also animals, but they also could be counted as human, right? Like there's obviously evidence of Neanderthal DNA within ourselves. This has been demonstrated on multiple occasions.
What does that prove, though?
Well, why would a Neanderthal be able to have offspring with one of us?
We're lay people in this field as well. You're kind of asking the wrong guys. You're asking us to defend a science.
You can't go and have a baby with a primate, with a monkey, so that doesn't make sense.
Does it? Well, if a Neanderthalensis was around today and you had an offspring with it, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's a human too? I mean, like, these kinds of constructs we have to describe species, my greater point, right, are ultimately arbitrary, right? Like there's yes, they are. I mean, ask any scientist who studies the field of evolution.
No, I know.
They are arbitrary, but they're not arbitrary in the sense of, oh, we're just going to randomly pick here and there. Yes, we generally use viable offspring as a category for species, but there are also species that are different. Listen, I have to talk, and you cannot interrupt me while I'm talking, because that tells me that you are not listening. Do you understand? Do not waste my time. I will let you go.
And then y'all come dump me.
I will drop you. I will. I'm happy to do that. In fact, I'll do that right now, because I'm only interested in talking to people who are willing to listen. Okay? Obviously, you're not listening. If I can finish my fucking point, lions and tigers, guess what? You make ligers. That's the thing. 2 different animals. New species. Whoa. Is it a species? Depends on who you ask. Species differentiation is ultimately arbitrary categories come up by scientists. Viable offspring isn't always the most consistent attribute you can make to determine species.
Any actual evolutionary scientist out there listening, apologies that, like, I'm sure, like, no, but there's better points to make. But the thing is like, you're asking us to defend this, and no, belief in a scientific theory is not the same as belief in God.
Yes. Also, I again assert the fact that, look, if you know something, you believe something, right? I don't know what it means to know something and not believe it. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know what that means, right? So these sort of arbitrary kind of just, oh, you just believe it because it's dogma. I mean, that's just, again, it's just a straw man. It doesn't prove anything, right?
And we get a little bit heated on these things because the kind of distrust in science that comes with this blanket distrust in evolution has so many horrible repercussions. It's why we have things like anti-vaxxers and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, anyway.
No, I get heated when people just are rude and
don't listen
or just don't care. Like it just wastes my time.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.